In this video, you guys are going to be learning about triangles. It's the introduction to triangles that'll get us ready for our next lesson. So first, a triangle is the union of three segments. All right, so three segments joining using three non-collinear points. So remember, non-collinear means they're not on the same line, hence why a triangle, right? So then we have the segments of a triangle are called the sides and their endpoints are called the vertices. So when you have a triangle, those corner pieces are called the vertices. So there are three types of ways that we can classify a triangle. One way is by its angles. So when we classify a triangle by its angles, it's just honestly based off the degrees of them. So here we have a triangle is an acute triangle if all of its angles are acute. So between 0 and 90 degrees. Then we have a triangle is obtuse if exactly one of its angles is obtuse. So that means that the angles are going to be greater than 90 but less than 180 degrees. Then one triangle is a right triangle if exactly one of its angles is a right angle. So you will see right triangles looking like this. And then the next one here is when all of the angles are congruent. So all three are congruent, they're all the same degree, and that's going to be called equiangular. Okay, so next we can classify them by their sides. So we have scalene. So scalene is when none of the sides are congruent. So not one is the same length. The next is isosceles. This is one you've probably heard before. So this is when at least two of its sides are congruent. Okay, so here in this picture, this is an example of what the notation would look like, right? If the sides are congruent, let's say this length is 10 and this is 10. Okay, so this is an isosceles triangle. I also sometimes call it the angry triangle. It kind of looks like an angry bird. The next one we have here is the equilateral triangle, and that's when all of the sides are congruent. Okay, so we have a triangle, and we have 10, 10, and 10. So all of the lengths are congruent. So next we have here triangles. So when we have triangles, the sum of all of the angles, sum of the measures of the angles is 180 degrees. So we have here this triangle ABC. Now, there is a long, lengthy proof, but we're just going to go ahead and just give ourselves a quick example of what that would look like. So when I take the degree for angle 1 and angle 2 and angle 3, so let's say this is 20 degrees, this is, let's be a little more realistic. Let's do 80 degrees. And then here, this one would also be 80 degrees. So here, this is a triangle. So if we were going to go ahead and add 20 plus 80 plus 80, that would equal 180 degrees. So all of the angles in a triangle will equal that. So next we have here, the acute angles of a right triangle are complementary. So for example, if we were to have a right triangle here, a right triangle, that means that this degree is 90. So let's say we knew this degree was 30 degrees. I could just do 90 minus 30, and we would get 60 degrees, which is this angle here. Now, once we have that angle here, let's do a quick check. Okay, so we have here 90 plus 60 plus 30 equals, you guessed it, 180. Okay, so this is just a shortcut. If you don't remember it, that's okay, but it just kind of makes things a little quicker sometimes. Okay, so the next we have here, the measure of each angle of an equiangular triangle is 60 degrees. Equiangular triangle implies an equilateral triangle. So they go hand in hand. So this is when you have a triangle with the same degrees, and those degrees are going to be 60, and they also have congruent sides. Next, we have what it looks like for a triangle with congruent sides. So a triangle with two sides congruent, those opposite angles are going to be congruent. Hence, if you have the two sides, see these two lines, that implies that those bottom angles there, they're called base angles, would be congruent. And vice versa, this is just the reverse of it. Okay, so this is when we have those two bottom angles congruent, and then you can say that those sides are congruent. Okay, so let's do a couple examples here. So over here it says find the measure of each angle. Now, like I've said before, all of this here, yes, it is so important, but sometimes it's more confusing than helpful. So I'm going to look directly at this picture. I can see that this degree is 68 degrees. I know that angle 2 is a vertical angle. So angle 2 is vertical to that 68 degree angle. So this will be 68 degrees. We know, so this was what I looked at first. Second is what I'm seeing here is that the measure of angle, well, angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 will equal 180 degrees. So we have here measure of angle 1 plus 68 equals 180. When we go ahead and subtract that, we will get here the measure of angle 1 equals 112 degrees. So we get 112 degrees. Next we have here, now notice, do you see any parallel lines anywhere? Because I sure don't. So do not do alternate interior, do not do consecutive or corresponding or anything like that. We do not have parallel lines. So the third step, what I'm going to do here, number 3, is I'm going to look at angle 3, the measure of angle 3 and the measure of angle 4. I notice that there's a right angle here, and whenever there's a right angle, that means we know those lines are perpendicular. So angle 3 and angle 4 are also right angles. So this is a 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees as well. Now notice here we have a triangle. In this triangle, in that last example of what I gave you guys above, was saying that when you have a triangle, the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. So let's take a look at our step 4 here. So we know the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 equals 180. So here we're going to go ahead and do, let's see, 68 plus 90 plus the measure of angle 5 equals 180. When we go ahead and add those two and then subtract them, we will go ahead and get the missing angle. So here, 180 minus 68 minus 90, we get 22 degrees. 22 degrees. So the measure of angle 5 equals 22. Then next, finally, steps 5, we have here, I know angle 5 and angle 6, the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 6 will equal 180 degrees because they are linear. And then when we subtract, we will go ahead and get 158 degrees. Now that I've filled them all out, now I can go ahead and fill them in over here. So angle 1 is 112 degrees, angle 2 is 68, angle 3 is 90, angle 4 is 90, angle 5 is 22, and angle 6 is 158 degrees. All right. Next, we have a couple examples here that I'll work through you for at least the first two. So it says here, classify the triangle by its angles and by its sides. So if it helps to get a list of the angle by the angles and the sides, go ahead. So first I'll do it by the angles. So in number 1, all of the angles are congruent. All of them are congruent, so this is equiangular. Okay. All of the sides are the same length. So by the angle, it's equiangular. By the side, it's equilateral. Okay, next one here, we have a triangle where the degrees, okay, so we have 55, 35, oh, and this one is supposed to be 90. That means this, by the angles, it is classified as a right triangle. But by its sides, if you notice, all of them are different, 3, 5, 4. So this is going to be a scalene. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead, pause the video, fill out 3 through 6 on your own, and then when you come back, push play, and they will be filled out. Okay, so take a look, number 3, those angles, there's one obtuse, so it's classified as an obtuse triangle. By the sides, though, however, you have 2 sides that are the same length, so it's isosceles. Next, number 4 here, you have all acute angles, but if you notice, you have 2 sides that are the same length, so it's isosceles. Next, you have one obtuse angle, all the sides are different, so scalene, and 6, it's an acute triangle. because of the degrees, but two of the sides are congruent, so it's isosceles. I want to mention that angles, so when you're looking at the angles of a triangle, the sum is 180 degrees. When you look at the sides are whatever they are. So the sides are not 180 degrees, are not. I cannot stress it enough. Okay, so they are not 180 degrees. The sides are whatever they are. Only angles can be degrees, not sides. Sides are some centimeters, inches, feet, right? It's going to be some type of distance, and it just kind of depends on what you're given, okay? So never set your angles, your sides equal to 180 because that is not true. Okay, that is all I have. Let me know if you have questions. Bye.